Welcome to the Pinning Combination Podcast. New year, new decade, same old people sitting around talking wrestling. KJ Pilcher from the Gazette alongside Wyatt Schultz and Dick Briggs, as you guys know, and thanks for joining in, tuning in.
Same old people.
I know, we just turned a year older.
Yeah.
I included myself in there, right?
He's a young pup, okay.
But we're going to jump right back into college, high school wrestling, some of the few results from the last time that we talked with you. We'll look ahead a little bit to what's coming up. And then we'll also have what's kind of the segment that I'm kind of looking forward to is You Make the Call that Coach Briggs introduced earlier as well that I really liked. So we'll touch on that. Everybody have a nice holiday?
Oh, mine was great. Nice little break, kind of catch up on things, and of course, me, I gotta work. I did my billing, got all that caught up, so it was a good break.
And for me, it's the same. It's like the wrestlers and the coaches. They need that little break that can kind of rejuvenate them. It's nice to have that, get with family, and then let's go. This month I'm so excited for. Man, there's going to be some great wrestling on the college level for sure. And then the high school is always fabulous. So.
And you, KJ?
I went to Roosevelt High School to their big hill to do some sledding.
Middle school.
To do some sledding. Unfortunately, there's no snow, so essentially it was just me rolling down the hill. It was still fun.
Did you bring out the water slide?
Oh, we could have. My Speedo's on back order. So, unfortunately, we weren't able to do that either. But still a good time. So, Happy New Year to all. So let's roll. Let's get into it because I like that you introduced this last time.
Yeah, I do too.
And ready to ace another.
See if we can get this one right.
This is a multiple choice. Here it is. It is stalling when either wrestler, A, backs out of bounds, B, prevents a wrestler from returning onto the mat from the out of bounds, C, has shoelaces that become undone, D, A and B above, E, all above.
Well, that's an interesting question. I'll start because that happened over the weekend.
Well, wait. Let's let him.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm gonna put this little caveat in it because I don't think this was actually the case a few years ago, at least back like when I was still competing. Because I think now they actually have a rule that your laces have to be secured or covered. So I'm going to say all the above.
Okay, all above.
And the situation that happened over the weekend up at the Clash, you're supposed to have them secured. If you have laces, they got to be taped or whatever. This individual had shoelaces, plus they were Velcroed. So they were secure when he stepped on the mat, but the shoelace did come untied.
Really?
And so he had to stop, tie his shoelaces, and it was a warning.
Automatic warning.
Yeah, it was a warning. And of course the coaches were livid because their feeling was it was secured when they stepped on the mat. But that is not, I don't think is the rule. I don't think it is. I would say a stalling call.
So let's kind of tackle them one at a time. You are correct. It is all of the above. Okay, so if a person backs out of bounds, it can be a stalling, warning, or it could be fleeing the mat, which is the stalling is stalling, and if it's fleeing the mat, that's a technical violation, 1 point automatic. Or if the person pushes them off the mat, and that can be also a technical, which is B, or prevents them from coming back in, that could be stalling as well.
And I think that's probably the one that gets overlooked the most as well because you think, oh, well, the person's backing off. But, I think you've seen more officials kind of bring it in the light a little bit that you're not letting action continue by doing that, not letting somebody back on and just pushing them out. So
right, and then the shoelaces. If a wrestler comes out and they're tied and stowed, as shoe makers are given different options as how to do it, Velcro or whatever, little pockets, And so anyway, if it comes away out of that pocket and comes untied, doesn't matter. If it comes untied, it's an automatic warning this year. It's on the very first page of and as the rule changes, and it's a rule
Something 3.
Yeah, 413. Right, 413. So anyway, basically, if you can maybe see that your opponent's shoe isn't double knotted, double knotted is the way to do it. It's not going to come untied double knotted, right? If it's not double knotted, maybe you could, in one of those laces, untie it.
Exactly. You get in a scramble situation, grab the shoelace and untie.
I'm just kidding. So anyway.
So your next duel, mate, you're going to find out.
Yeah, no. I don't
Now,
have
see,
to.
where does the headgear come into play too? Has there been anything with that?
Well, the headgear, since they reported to the table ready to wrestle, and the headgear was in working fashion at the time, if it comes undone in the course of the match, they have the opportunity to
Okay.
just like a brace that might slip down or something, they can readjust that or those sorts of things. So if it was working at the beginning of the match, or even if it breaks, then they can get another one. It's still
Okay, so this is another one of my stories, and I probably should be more embarrassed than thinking this is funny. But so this was a little bit of a difference. The medical. I got cleared to wrestle during one of the UNO Opens. I had ringworm kind of above my knee inside my thigh, but we had tape over it, and I was allowable.
before there was the rule. Yeah, the rule. Mm-hmm.
So what we had this thing set up because at that time injury timeouts were 3 up to 90 seconds.
Right. Instead of 2.
Yeah. So myself and our trainer Michael Petticord up at BV, we had it set up. Looking at me kind of stirred, like, yeah, don't go there. This isn't right.
Where are we going with it? I'm not sure.
We go out of bounds, and I would put my thumb inside the tape and kind of pull it down, and then turn to the official and go like this. And Petticord would run out. He goes, "Did I do a bad job, tape? Ah, man, here I gotta get this better." So he had that, and then the second time going out of bounds, I twist my ankle, and Petticord immediately would go, "Your ankle again?" And we do that, but it was the skin thing that we would loosen the tape and pull it off so it was exposed, and he would have to come out and knew exactly what to do. I am very ashamed, but we did use that
and
occasionally.
And honestly, that's why those types of
Rules.
Characters.
Yeah,
Change the rule to there's an automatic. In college, if you have an injury timeout, the other wrestler gets his choice of position. Mm-hmm. So when you restart, if he was on top, now he can go to bottom and get the escape point. So that's why I believe that's why that.
So you had 3 lung calls three.
No, they were let's call it what they were. Yeah, that's what they were at times.
Too funny.
And we didn't have to use them all the time. They were usually until maybe about this time of the year, maybe until we got through December.
Get through Christmas.
Yeah. And now I would need them all the time. But anyway, yeah. So that's interesting that.
So it was kind of tackled a new rule this year, and with the shoelaces coming untied, and I mean even if they were stowed and they come untied, it's an automatic warning. So yep, thought we'd throw that out. I'll bring another new rule next year, next week. So yep. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And just for the record, I'm 2 for 2. So, anyway, over the break, one of the kind of the big thing, Midlands Championships between Christmas and New Year's, are the 29th and 30th at the Sears Center Arena in Hoffman Estates, Illinois. University of Iowa won big. Not a surprise, maybe what they were able to do in doing that. 5 champions. I want to say like 10 in the quarterfinals or even 10 in the semis. I mean, it was pretty amazing what they were able to do. UNI with another strong showing there, finishing second for the second straight year. A couple finalists in Bryce Steyert and then champion Taylor Lujan, at 74 and 84 for the Panthers. So good showings there for both Iowa and UNI.
Right. I mean, for me, Iowa looks outstanding. They really do because they got 196 points or something like that. well above UNI's second point total, second place, which by the way was UNI's highest finish ever as a team. So that was great. But Iowa, man, 5 champs, 2 runners up, and they can still do better. I mean, that's the scary part. Sheesh. I mean, they didn't have Kemmerer there.
Yep.
I mean, so holy cow, there's a bunch right there.
And Lee withdrew.
Obviously, Lee withdrew. So those 2 right there. I mean, and
But what fascinated me about that is the depth at a lot of those weights. You're talking about 84, 49. Just the depth that they have, because there's not much of a drop off in their starter if something would happen, injury wise or anything, for the next guy in, and he could fill right in.
149 was a perfect point where Pat Lugo ends up winning the entire thing. Beat Max Thompson in the semis, and then beat Austin O'Connor, who was ranked number 1 from North Carolina, in the finals and looked really good doing it. Then you had Vince Turk, who made it to the semis. Jaron Glosser
Turk ended up 4th.
And Turk ended up 4th overall, and then Jaron Glosser made it to the quarterfinals. Unfortunately for him, he ended up having to
He ended up 6th.
injury default. Yeah. And it didn't look good because he's a tough kid, and he hurt his knee kind of right there, and you could see him grimacing, and it almost looked like at one time maybe the coaches were saying, "Don't even try going again. If you're hurt, let's back it off." And he tried, and then I think he hit kind of a stand up, and then he turned and went
right
and shook his head. And a tough kid like that. And the bad thing is, I think he's a senior, and that could be it for him.
But I appreciate him doing that, because I didn't. That happened to me, and I said, it was dumb. I couldn't even walk, and I'm going, I'm gonna wrestle, because I was never gonna quit. That was stupid. I should have quit. I was hurt.
Well, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of things to take into consideration, for your long-term health and stuff as well. But
as a senior, I can understand, because he may know in the back of his mind that this is his last chance, and I could see where you'd want to finish the year or finish the tournament or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hopefully he's all right and
Yeah.
come back a little bit here. So.
Yeah, but 3 in the top 6,
right? And
that way.
then actually, 84, another, like you pointed out.
Yeah.
Holy cow! Second, third, and third knocked out the third Iowa.
Yeah.
Right.
At the medal round.
Yep, and that's one of the things too. As you mentioned, 184 coming into the Midlands, that was going to be, everybody kind of expects that to be a big factor in determining kind of the order, kind of going through. And it was said afterwards, we have 3 options, which to me, I don't think it's what it means at face value. I think he's just saying, well, we have 3 possibilities. I think it still comes down to Wilkie and Brands.
Awesome.
Do you guys think Wilkie did what he needed to do to kind of move back into being the number 1 guy right now, or his spot to lose?
I think he did, myself, because he lost to Sebastian and then turned around and come back and finished 3rd, and Sebastian finished 8th, I believe. And so to me, I felt he kind of pushed himself back in the lead role.
I agree. I mean, if you're not going to do Russell-offs and you're not going to use what happens in competition, what's left?
Yeah.
So I agree. If it was let's just say that sudden victory match, the winning match, was against a kid from another team that was ranked above you, and wouldn't you want to be seated above him in the tournament? It doesn't matter that it was sudden victory. That's the victory.
Right.
It still counts. So if you're not going to do those, I think you really have to go that direction. And I don't know that. So what happened? Wick beat Brands in sudden victory, and then Wilkie went on to win 3 more matches. Mm-hmm. And then what's to say Brands would win those 3? We don't know.
Right.
So, and those were tough, close matches that he won.
Right.
And so, I just think that he's, in my personal opinion is, if you're going to use competition as your barometer and as your who's the varsity, then I agree with you.
Yeah, and another.
It's still close. Don't get me wrong, but
Right. It's not 100% settled because they're, still, you still got to continue to do it. I mean,
Right.
we're just at the beginning of January. But one other thing too, looking at the results, also not only the head-to-head, but Wilkie with a victory over Brown Eagle of Illinois, who I believe is the one that knocked Brands down into the.
also a common opponent. Yeah, I didn't realize
So
that.
there's a common opponent there as well that.
So Nelson lost to him and Wilkie beat him.
Yeah, and with
So-
Assad getting second to Lujan, and I mean even the match to Lujan, it was 4-0. He was in on a lot of shots. Of course, Lujan, it's just a different type of competitor. Just because you're in on a shot doesn't mean you're close to scoring, kind of thing.
Especially with Lujan.
So even though it was close, I don't know if Lujan was ever really in danger.
Yeah.
But Assad still had a heck of a tournament, excuse me. And wrestled fantastic, making the finals as a true freshman. But if you look at history, there is a need or a weight that probably could use Derek St. John his true freshman year after he wrestled really, really well at Midlands. They never pulled the shirt. Sorensen was in the same situation where he finished really well at Midlands. They had a weight where he could have maybe made an immediate impact. They didn't pull a shirt. I don't think that's something that the coaches like doing. Brands kind of mentioned beforehand that Assad is making great strides in practice and kind of maturing and getting used to everything. He still has work to do, so that makes me think he's not really focused on throwing him into the mix at 184. And I just don't see that being the case because Lee is the only one that we've seen. Lee's been the exception of being injected into the lineup after, at this midway point.
Other than DeSanto and Gross.
What about Kimber? Did he start? Wasn't he a freshman?
He was a redshirt. He redshirted a full year. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, other than DeSanto and Gross.
But he was another one that did really well and could have factored into the lineup.
Yeah, I was looking forward to that Assad Lujan match, other than the DeSanto Gross one, of course. But that was the one I was looking forward to because the tournament that Assad had up to that point, I was really looking forward to that.
Yeah, and
I think that was my question. Do you pull the red shirt off him? I think the only reason you pull the red shirt off Assad is if you think it'll make the difference between winning an NCAA title, team title, and not. If you think he's going to make be the difference, point wise between what Wilkie's or Brands, whoever would fit in there, can score. If he can score more, and that's going to be the difference, then you pull it. I think that in that instance you probably do. That's the only instance because you've got two really able bodies right there, and. So, I mean, I just don't.
And I'd even have a slightly different opinion than that. And my feeling is kind of like Spencer, when he was a freshman, to me, every wrestler's goal would be to be a national champion. And his would be to be a 4-time national champion. So, to me, the only way to pull it would be if he had a legitimate shot at winning a national title.
Well, I think that was kind of what I was thinking because the other two guys I think are going to be All-Americans. Probably if they got the chance to wrestle. So is he going to be, if not a champ, awful darn close?
Yeah. So that would be my take on it.
A couple of the other performances as well. Marinelli, I think he received the Champion of Champions award. Became Iowa's 14th 3-time Midlands champ. That was a weight class that had some really top guys, and he beat McFadden of Virginia Tech, which is a quality win. They're in the finals, and he looked good. They're at 165. Cassiope at heavyweight. We were talking about this on our way to the Iowa City West City High meet last week. That was a match. Can't remember the particulars, but if you just kind of go off the final results, he beat Matt Stencil in the finals. Stencil pinned him at Midlands last year. So if you want to maybe at face value a gauge of how much Cassiope has grown there, I think that's a good mark for you to use.
And the little bit I wasn't out there just to watch, and I was working a lot of the time when the tournament was on. But I did see some little clips of him. Man, he's athletic. I mean, he's
quick.
He's quick. He's athletic. He's lower and he's strong. He's gonna be fun to watch.
Yeah.
And heavyweight, man, especially in the Big Ten. Holy cow, is that loaded?
Yeah.
Sheesh. So
And now
he's
you're
gonna
throwing-
get tested between now and.
And then you're throwing Gable Stevenson out of Minnesota, who's just coming back.
Well, he's in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I know, but
I
I
mean,
mean,
those-
he hasn't
oh my
been wrestling
gosh.
that much yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Penn State with Kassar, and whether or not he goes. Even if he doesn't, the likelihood of Seth Neville's stepping in, and he's going to be pretty darn good
A lot of depth there
as
for
well.
them. Yep.
And Iowa with the 5 champs, 2 runners up. I believe Assad was included in that as well. And just to mention, Max Murin won. We mentioned Lugo, Marinelli, Cassiope, and I think I get the 5 there.
Yeah.
And then before we touch on DeSanto Gross, who DeSanto was the other runner-up, asked one. I was surprised Lee ended up wrestling at Midlands, but I asked about it after day 1 when he went 3-0. Just trying to ask. That was pretty impressive because a week before he'd wrestled at Fort Worth at the U.S. Nationals to win that tournament against high-level competition, and actually just kind of steamrolled his way through. And then a week later, you're talking about traveling back from Fort Worth to Chicago, having to make weight again, holiday between there.
Is there much transition between freestyle and folk style then?
Not for him.
No,
He made it look easy.
And interestingly, even though the disciplines are different, so many of them say, and it could be just wrestler speak or coach speak or whatever, but they say wrestling is wrestling. I really think with Spencer Style, even though he's tough on top, I think it kind of rings true a little bit. But I asked about it, and one of the things that was said was that essentially with the seeding formula, they need to have so many matches against Division I rostered wrestlers, to keep people from holding others out. They have to have a certain level or threshold of matches wrestled to have full strength when it comes to
So
seeding.
these
in the
3
postseason.
matches would count towards that?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So these 3. So
Okay,
that was
that's
the.
good.
So that was the thing, and I know there is scuttlebutt on the internet about whether he was sick or whether he was hurt or stuff like that. I really believe, without you're never really probably going to get a straight answer, but I really think it was predetermined. Wrestle the first day, you get 3 matches in, so you're going to have enough by the time March comes around, so the seating committee can't.
Well, and it's likely that he might get pulled. It's for some other competitions. I don't know what.
Possibly, depending on
competitions are
what
in.
they decide they want to do for
Yeah.
freestyle, whether or not they want to venture overseas. I know some of that. I know some of those international events start as early as January 15th to start kind of paving the way to Tokyo.
Well, I remember Kyle Snyder doing that.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago. So.
Yep.
Yeah, because he didn't get very many matches
So
in either. So.
right, and I think that's just predetermined to make sure he's able to.
Well, and this is a new rule since Snyder, I think, isn't it? Or
I think it might have been. I want to go back to the year that, I want to say maybe just a little bit before that.
before Snyder?
Yeah, but I'm not sure.
Because I don't remember
exactly
Snyder
when.
having very many matches.
No,
Right, the one year he was only 8-0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that might have
That's the
played
Olympic year.
into it and stuff. But so that was part of it. Kemmerer didn't really get a good idea there. Brand said, it's just December. We have to do what's right by them. And if it was the Big Tens, he'd be wrestling.
Well, and he mentioned online, I saw a clip here
this was
and there, we've got to get him healthy. I believe something to that effect. So there must be some slight little ding or whatever. So,
Yep.
and it's that time of year. Totally get that.
Yep, and especially with his history over the last 18 months, where he's had his shoulder and knee and stuff like that, and missed a large amount of time. Err on the side of caution, probably.
Yeah, and I'm sure you get a lot of questions about it, like I do, and I just respond with, I'm sure it's just a coach's decision, and just let it go at
I
that.
ask.
Coaches are going to be guarded.
Yeah.
And they have to be, and they can't talk about health.
No.
And we talked about that. We've talked about this on the side too with HIPAA,
Right.
and stuff. There are some things that unless an athlete comes out and says, "Yeah, you can discuss my health or whatever," legally they can't.
Cannot.
But I ask. Sometimes it comes with a mixed reaction, but I've got to ask. I got to do my job. I got to ask, and
And one last thing on the they can even do better comment that I made earlier. I assume that Nelson Brands was the scoring 84 pounder, and he didn't play, and so they got 190 some points with Lee at 6, without Kemmer, and really without their 84 pounder scoring.
and actually, I believe they changed the scoring for the Midlands a few years ago to where it's just your actual top 10 point scorers. So whoever scores the most 10 points.
So you can get second and third at one weight, and those can be
So he
points.
did.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay, wow.
if Wilkie scored more there, then
He would get the.
yep.
That's
if he
unusual.
was in the top 10. Yeah,
And
that's-
Midlands does that. They do have kind of unusual rules through the
Yeah,
years.
I think it's better than the mysterious 10 at one time where you had no idea
Who the 10
coach-
were?
Yeah, so it was hard to figure out. And before we hit on UNI's overall performance or the individuals really quick, DeSanto Gross, that was a rematch that, like you said, I think a lot of people were looking forward to, and it was pretty exciting, kind of going down to the end. But Gross with a 4-point move in the first period.
Basically took the match,
Yeah.
but even so, the scrambles throughout that whole match were just because Gross to me wrestled a lot different match in that finals than he did in his semifinals. Because he could have just as well gotten beat in that semis.
Almost did
Yeah.
against Rivera. That was a really fun match to watch.
Right.
He broke out in a lateral drop.
Rivera's no slouch. I mean,
No.
Yeah.
So give credit to him for being able to beat Rivera
Right,
and
and-
then come back and beat DeSanto. So I mean, geez.
A big lateral drop there for Gross against Rivera that helped him get a victory.
Yeah, that was a great match, which is why it was the last duel or the last match.
And I think it just sets up more excitement for the next DeSanto Gross match. So
Possible 2 more.
Exactly.
possibly Big Tens and nationals. yeah.
Nationals.
Yep. But
Potentially.
you've got a lot of like you've got Rivera and a lot of others at 33 that are going to factor in as well.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
if you're looking at a 2-horse race,
It's
somebody's
not.
going to catch you from behind.
Yep.
Yeah, it definitely isn't. But you and I, we talked about Lujan, Bryce Steyert, very impressive. A runner-up to Leidy of Purdue, who first time Purdue's had 2 champs. The only other team
Right.
besides Iowa to have multiple champs. And of course, the coach there, Tony Ursuline, the Humboldt native, former Hawkeye there. So seeing improvements there from Purdue.
Who I think Leidy's 4th and Steyert 5th, at least on the in
Rankings.
the rankings. Yeah, that I happen to look at today. So
Yeah, and I think it was a 3-2 match.
close,
So Steyert looked good throughout the course. I think Leidy might have beaten him in Vegas in overtime, even. So both times they faced
Right
each
there,
other,
huh?
they've been really close matches, and Bryce wrestled really well throughout the weekend. Max Thompson 3rd, and then Carter Isley with a 5th place finish. I tell you what, he's really starting to round into
He
a
is.
quality heavyweight. We've seen good performances, really good performances at Vegas and now at Midlands. So
Yeah, he's really starting to step it up and help Northern Iowa. So, he had that tough match with Utah Valley, but
Orndorff, yeah.
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 I
Well,
always never
Orndorff's
think of
one of the
Ranked eighth.
Yeah.
I think Isley's 14th, I believe.
Yeah, but he's getting to be a nice little plug for
Yeah, I
Northern
agree.
Iowa.
Stepping it up, yeah.
Yeah,
So just to stay with Northern Iowa, you mentioned Utah Valley. Panthers beat them Saturday night, I believe.
yes.
32-12. That was a duel that I think they were up 32-3 maybe going into the final two weight classes there. So that was a pretty dominant win. And, of course, they have a big week coming up. But, I think they might be a little bit stronger than they were maybe, say, a month ago.
Right.
And Schwarm got another fall.
Yeah, which makes them fifth all time.
Yeah, isn't that's crazy?
Yeah. He's a pinner for sure.
Yes, he is.
Knows how to seal the deal.
Yeah.
I noticed that Utah Valley was without one of their ranked kids. They had two ranked kids, and so that would have been a nice matchup. It would have been at 74 with Steyer. So
Oh, okay.
That would have been a nice matchup there, but didn't happen.
So, let's just go ahead touch on the scuffle really quick before we talk about the tournaments
Hey,
coming up.
one other thing I forgot to mention at Midlands, I saw that that there was two other Iowans,
Places.
unless I missed.
Yeah,
No.
no, those
They
are
did.
two.
Nolan Hellickson from Southeast Polk, right?
Yep.
And who's at Harvard. Wow.
Yeah,
I don't need to know how he did wrestling. He's at Harvard, man. That's impressive. And then Cade DeVos at South Dakota State. They both placed 8th. So
Yeah.
anyway, sorry. Then on to the scuffle.
yeah, and two Southeast Polk. Both
Right,
of them
both
from
Southeast Polk. Sorry, yeah.
which is pretty neat. So yeah, two. One of the interesting things too is Cade didn't have a corner guy for a few of his matches. I think it was day 2, possibly, and he had a coach that didn't have slacks on, so the assistant official kicked him out of the corner.
Oh, so he had no corner.
So he had no corner.
So
I saw him
no
without
one-
a corner and didn't see
No one to throw a brick
why. Yeah, I think he had to throw his own brick, which that's another thing. Something that they changed, and you saw it come into play. Was it Assad? One of Assad's matches? Because everybody remembers when Spencer Lee was a red shirt, he didn't have a challenge on that late score by Bresser in the semis, and it was something that, well, unattached wrestlers don't have challenges. Now they do. Now Midlands has changed it to where unattached wrestlers get one challenge. And
Is that in Midlands or is that a NCAA rule?
I'm
Probably
not
in
sure.
Midlands.
I think it sounds like Midlands.
Yeah.
So
But I know at the Midlands they were able to do that, and I think it was Assad's match where they, I think Brooks or Clark, who were cornering the two red shirts, threw it in, and it was a successful challenge.
well, I mean, obviously that's not going to happen at NCAA tournament because you're going to have a coach and no
Right.
one's
Right.
wrestling unattached.
Right.
That's why I was saying. It
But
was
there are
probably-
other
But
open
other
tournaments,
open tournaments,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Right.
At Oklahoma State, or I'm sorry, at the Southern Scuffle, Oklahoma State came away with a team title there. Iowa State, it was brought up, and you kind of brought it to my attention that they didn't really send many of their starters. I think 3 went down to the scuffle. But out of those 3 starters, I think they sent like 16 total or something like that.
Quite a few.
But only 3 starters. The rest red shirts or reserves. And Gannon Gremmel comes away with an individual title there. The former Hempstead Prep and heavyweight defeated Dalton Robertson of Northern Colorado in the final. I think by fall.
Was it by fall? Wow. He had an impressive tournament for sure.
4-0.
And Coach said, I saw a little clip. He said, he's going to hold people back, most of the team back, and his reasoning was, and I don't doubt this at all, they have a loaded January. I mean, their schedule is just loaded. And not only do they have a lot of meets, they're traveling across the country a couple of times to Arizona and back, to California and back, maybe even to Utah. Was it maybe Utah or whatever? Anyway, they're and then they've got pretty high-powered meets at home with Oklahoma State and so forth.
Don't they have like 5 duels in like 8 days or something?
Yeah, something to that effect. So
yeah,
and it makes total sense. But it's comment. The one that made me kind of giggle was, because I know Gannon a little bit, is that he says Gremmel will be better in competition. We'll get more out of him in competition. Something to that effect. And I'm going, read into that one, huh? And then more into competition than practice. I don't know.
Gremmel won by default in 114, not by fall. He was leading 4-0 at the time of
that's
the
right.
default.
I see that.
Over
I got you.
So,
that's where you got that fall in there, or you were thinking it was a fall. Yeah,
with the time stamp. But also had a win in the semis against Miller of Appalachian State as well. So a good showing for him. And it's kind of interesting you mentioned that verbiage there. But it worked out well for him.
But at the same time, some kids do better in competition.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Than
practice.
Than practice.
I mean, this is huge for him. If he goes down and wins the scuffle. Now, I don't want to downplay any of what we've just talked about with Iowa or with Gremmel or anyone, but I do think that the scuffle in the Midlands are not quite as competitive as they have been in the past few years. Everything's a perspective too. When you're doing as well as Iowa is and you're looking down, everything doesn't look too tough, right?
Well, the other thing we had talked about too is a lot of your senior level wrestlers are not competing at these tournaments where they have in the past. I guess I'm talking the Midlands. You don't have your senior level wrestlers like your Joe Williams, who's a 10-time champ.
Yeah.
So
right. And just the decisions that teams are making, like Penn State's on the shelf during this time. They're not competing anywhere. Arizona State didn't come to the Midlands.
Right.
To bring guys like Shields and the Valencias and Hall and stuff like that, like they have in the past. Some of the teams are opting to go down and wrestle dual tournaments in Florida, like South Dakota State, Cornell, teams like that. So just either deciding not to wrestle or it's getting spread out with different things. And no, I think there's certainly some validity that they're not exactly the same. And Iowa set a points record at Midlands this year with how they did, and I know some people were saying, well, you've got to put some context to it. Seeing tweets that it's not quite the same tournament that it was. Scoring is different. You just can't say, well, they set a team record, because there's different parameters.
Well, like we mentioned at 84, I think that in the old rule, Brands would have been the scoring 84 pounder. He didn't place, so now Wilkie got the points because he placed higher or whatever. So and probably Assad maybe. No, I don't know if he scores any, if he's redshirting, but
yeah.
But anyway, so that makes total sense to me. Yeah, it's apples to oranges.
So if they're scoring the top 10 guys, they're averaging 19.5 points apiece.
Well, when you got 7 in the finals,
yeah,
that'll happen.
Yeah.
So you made mention of all those duels that Iowa State has coming up, and you touched on it. Only 2 of those 8 are at home.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of traveling.
And I think you mentioned.
So it's 8 duels.
Yeah.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm not sure if they actually wrestle Arizona State. It says it on their. Yeah, they do, don't they?
Yep.
Okay.
So they'll head out to Utah. You mentioned that.
Out to Utah.
To start things off January 9th. Then they finish the month off at Fresno State, like you mentioned.
And throw Arizona State in there. So
throw
they're going
Arizona
back and forth.
State in there as well. So, and And the Utah Valley and the Sun Devil duels are within a 3-day stretch, so they're going to be out there for a
that's a
long
swing.
period.
That's a swing.
Yeah, but
Okay.
they'll be out there for a long period of time. So they're going to be out there in 3 days, 4 duels in 3 days, and probably be gone for about 4 or 5 days, considering the travel
Sure.
during that stretch.
So you got to consider
then
holding
go
your
to
weight
Brookings.
down, traveling, not sleeping in your own bed, missing classes,
Yep.
and all those things.
You come back for a few days, and then you go to Brookings, their shortest trip, but still. Then you have a couple at home with North Dakota State, and one of your home duels happens to be Oklahoma State, so that's no picnic either. So yeah, definitely a tough challenge in front of them this month for the Cyclones. UNI this weekend hosts South Dakota State on Friday night in the West Gym, and then Mizzou on Sunday. So a big weekend for them as well. One of the things I'm kind of looking forward to, Tanner Sloan, former Albernet prep that's been ranked at 197. Midlands finalist last year as a true freshman, and member of the U23 World Team this last summer. Comes to Cedar Falls, so I'm sure there are a lot of people that'll be there
To watch
to watch Tanner.
Yep. Probably good following to head up there from
Yep.
Albernet, huh?
Yeah, and to watch the Panthers as well, not just
Absolutely.
to watch
Oh, sure.
Tanner.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Those are two solid programs, South Dakota State and Missouri for sure. So a good, tough weekend for the Panthers. Then they go to Colorado twice, I think, and I'm not sure if it's a swing or not, but they go to Northern Colorado and then Air Force. I think it's a week apart, and then host
Really?
Oklahoma State. Yeah, so they'll do some traveling of their own. But that's that Big 12 wrestling conference.
Right.
That is actually more than 12 now, isn't it? With all the teams
But it
in there.
encompasses some of the California teams
Right.
now, and
Yeah, it used to be the Big 12 was 5 and then 4, and then it's more
Yeah.
than 12. So go
yeah,
figure.
yeah. You mentioned next weekend the Northern Colorado and Greeley,
Probably is a swing.
and
in
then
it, yeah.
Colorado Springs for the duel against Air Force. So
So that one will be a couple days out in Colorado as well.
Yep.
As well.
and Iowa, of course, their swing heads to they're going the opposite direction. They'll go east to Indiana for Indiana, a duel with Indiana on Friday, Purdue on Sunday. You know, 2 duels that they should win handily. It'll be interesting to see who goes and who wrestles for them. And one other thing of note, too, I didn't get a chance to ask, and it's something I'll follow up on this week. Max Lyon is not wrestling for. Did you get a chance to talk to Max? while
No,
we were
I
there?
didn't, but
I
I
saw
saw
him
he was
around
there.
a little
I
bit.
did too.
And didn't get a chance to get his attention and talk to him. But Max Lyon, I don't think has been in the lineup for Purdue, and certainly didn't wrestle at Midland. So it'll be
Yeah,
interesting to see what.
Yeah, I saw him around, but I only saw him just for a short period, and so I never did go over. And some of it is I don't know if I should do it casually or officially.
Oh,
So
sure.
you know, and so I get a little torn about how to handle that
Sure.
for myself.
Sure.
And
So-
then when they get back, then they have 3 fun duels.
Yeah.
They being the Hawkeyes.
And that's that big stretch
Right.
at home.
Yeah.
Where you got Nebraska, Ohio State, Penn
Penn
State.
State.
Oh, and that was another thing too. Ohio State's heavyweight reportedly is out for the year. So I think is it the other
Singletary.
Snyder. Or Singletary. Yeah, there we go. I believe he's out for the year as well. So it'll be interesting to see what Ohio State. I think Gary Traub is the one that will step in there. So interesting, and definitely need to keep people healthy at this time of year for everybody. As far as other upcoming events, a big one this weekend, the multi-divisional
Yeah.
duels.
I'll be there.
D2, D3, NAIA, JUCO or NJCAA.
Well, here, let me help you out a little bit.
And NAIA.
D2
So,
has 19 teams. There's 67 men's teams total throughout the multi-divisions. So D2 has 19, D3 has 24 teams, NAIA has 16 teams, and the the junior college has 8 teams. In D2, number 6, Upper Iowa, this is my best guess. I think they're probably going to be seeded 6th. And there's 7 of the top 10 teams there, missing 7, 8, and 10. D3, Coe, Luther, Loris, and Wartburg will be the Iowa teams that are there. And there's 8 of the top 10 teams there. Number 8 and 10 missing, so highly ranked teams will be there. And based on the rankings that I could see today, but I think there might be another ranking, the coaches or whoever, either today or tomorrow, that might be coming out. Unless I just think, but based on the rankings, and the reason I think that is because Wartburg's ranked number 1 right now, but they won't be. Augsburg will be ranked number 1 because they've now put into their lineup the 3 All-Americans. They've been in their lineup
The
since.
second semester.
Right. So those 3, did I say All-Americans? The 3 national champions. Sorry. To go with their other 2
Carries a
national
little more
champions
weight,
that are
too.
Yeah.
already in the lineup. So they have 5 national champions. Anyway, then, so they'll be number 1. I'm guessing Wartburg then will be number 2. And then I think Loris will be, based on the rankings here, they might be 4th, but they could be 3rd or 4th there. Or maybe even 5th. I'm not sure how that'll shake out. We'll have to see what comes up with that.
Who would be number 3 otherwise? Would that be,
Right now, Whitewater's
okay.
ranked ahead of them, but I thought they beat Whitewater in a duel. Oh, no, Wabash. Wabash should be ahead of them.
Okay.
And that's who's ranked ahead of them. Whitewater is also ranked ahead of them. So Loris is 4th right now. Augsburg 5th. When they bump up, just knock all the others down. So, but I thought, if I'm not mistaken, I thought Loris beat Whitewater when they went up to lacrosse. But anyway,
Continue.
anyway, so then I think Coe, who's ranked 8th, will be seeded 7th or 8th, and that means those 3 teams will all have a bye that first round, and then Luther, I believe, is going to be ranked. My best guess is 18th to 20th, somewhere in there maybe. So it's going to be fun to watch those, and with those D3 schools, we see a lot of Iowa kids in there. It's always fun to watch watch those guys wrestle. At NAIA, there's Grandview's number 1, and they won't be challenged in my opinion. So there's 8 of the top 10 teams there, missing 8 and 9.
They're going for their 8th straight.
Yes, that's right.
8th straight
They were 7th last
duels.
year, I think.
Yeah,
titles.
shoot, they've been ranked number 1 since I was a little kid.
Or am I
think.
mistaking that for the NCAA? Or the NAIA national championship? So
No, but I think
That's also the
it's been for both. I think it's the same length for both championships for them.
now throw
NAIA.
Throw this in, the women's. So here's an interesting tidbit. Talking about women's. So this year in the NCAA women's programs, there's 15 teams, and in the NAIA women's, there's 10 teams. Compare that with last year. There were 12 teams total, and there were no divisions. There wasn't NCAA and there wasn't NAIA. So that's how much the women's have grown this year. They've not only do they have that many more teams,
Just over
but
doubled.
they've doubled. Yeah, and then but they've got now NCAA and NAIA,
got
so they're starting to get their divisions. Really speaks well for the women's programs and that movement out there. So anyway, should be pretty fun, and that's huge. Let's see, I think they had about, and there's also a youth tournament that's going on in this. It's like two big arenas, and so there's probably 36 or something like that mats that are laid down in the 2 different venues. They're connected. You can walk from one to the other, and it's quite a deal. It's a lot of fun.
So of course you'll be heading down there to watch and take that in. It should be fun. And as you mentioned, Loris beat Whitewater 33-18.
I thought so, yeah. At
towards
the
the beginning.
lacrosse?
Yep.
Yeah.
At the lacrosse.
So
team.
I'm not sure why they were ranked ahead of them in the rankings that I saw.
Well, that's probably the individual rankings.
Oh, you're right. That is.
Not dual
Exactly.
rankings.
That's it.
So there you
I don't think they do a dual ranking that I've
Yeah.
seen in D3.
But I did find 4 girls that are wrestling in the tournament. Alana Vederick, Norwalk for Midland. Jolynn Harris from Lincoln, Des Moines, Lincoln, is wrestling for Colorado Mesa.
Oh, really?
And then of course Rachel Waters out of Ballard for Oklahoma City, and Felicity Taylor from Southwind for McKendree.
Sure.
So 4 girls wrestling.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome, and I'm sure we'll see that number grow
Oh, big
and
time.
everything, too. Well, let's transition to high school here really quick. Not much really went on. A few dual tournaments and stuff. We were at Iowa City last Friday for one of the few weekly duels that occurred after the new year and after the break. Watched Iowa City West down Iowa City High 40-32. Real quickly, guys that were supposed to won, and for Iowa City West, when they won, they got a lot of bonus points. I think 5 pins out of their wins from their ranked wrestlers. Got
Right.
Major and a couple others, but
There was each team had 4 ranked wrestlers, so there's 8 ranked wrestlers, and they didn't meet up, so there were 8 weights where they went how they were supposed to, and then the other 4. To me, that's where the meet was won and lost, and the bonus points. So put those together, and that was the difference. And actually, I think, do I remember City High forfeited at heavyweight?
yes,
Yeah,
and
so-
that was another thing
and-
too
and-
that factored in.
and a little bit there. So anyway, it was a fun meet to have on Friday night. There was some good battles out there. So it's fun to see that rivalry be a little bit of a rivalry rather than a lopsided victory for one or the other that it's been through the years. But that'll be fun to get that cranked up a little bit. And the reason there wasn't much prep is the calendar fell back this year. That happens. It just happens
Yep.
sometimes, and it'll do it for maybe 1 or 2 years, and then by that I mean
About every
teams
5
could-
years, depending on.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
because it's a 7-year cycle, and so anyway, then with the leap year this year, I think
Right.
it is. That's another factor.
Throws things off.
But you can't. The state rule is you can't compete before January 1st. Well, if January 1st falls during that break, you can, like we were able to go to the Clash the one year, and there's other years we probably wouldn't have been able to go depending on where it's.
Because we actually had checked this year because of the Clash. I think the rule is from December 24th through January 1st, you
Right.
cannot compete.
Right. And so it just depends on where that falls. January 1st falls on the calendar. So this year it fell with the second and third being a Thursday, Friday, or however it was, and Saturday. Anyway, you can compete on those days, but because your schedule's not built that way,
Right.
you have to kind of shift it a little bit. I was at the Williamsburg duels, and I think from what I understand, that's a tournament that they, this year they had it in January, but it also flips back to December.
Oh.
And so those teams, I don't know, but from what I understand, that's kind of how they were able
Threw
to
it
do
out
that.
of whack.
So the Williamsburg was very dominant in that meet, and they Grinnell ended up second, and it was nice. Brock Beck had his 150th win, and I reffed that. And as I was raising his hand, they made that announcement. It's kind of neat. I said, "Hey, congratulations!" So I had no idea, but it was nice to be able to do that. Yeah, and then Iowa Valley was third, English Valley was fourth, and Lone Tree was fifth in that one. I saw that Solon went 5-0 in their tournament they had.
Yep, they rolled in the Solon duels. Anamosa was second, Muscatine was third, Midland fourth, Keokuk fifth, and
Keokuk. My roommate was from Keokuk.
Keokuk. All right.
I never know
College
what the
rugby.
what the proper pronunciation of that one is.
He corrected me, or taught me, educated me. Huh?
And then Vinton-Schellsburg came away with sixth there as well. So
I did notice this. I don't know if you guys noticed this. West Des Moines Valley had duels, and it was an interesting group. It was Valley, Lewis Central, Council Bluffs Lewis Central. I forget the third team, and then Belle Plaine. So there's 4 teams. But the thing that impressed me was that match, the meet between Belle Plaine and Lewis Central went 33-30. And so I was impressed with Belle Plaine. Nice job on that to be battling with Lewis Central. So, I mean, Belle Plaine's really, they're doing a good job of bringing that program back and rejuvenating it a little bit. So, nice job.
yeah, it looked like Lewis Central won the last 4 matches, as well. So
In that duel?
that duel.
I hadn't looked at the
Kinda
breakdown of it.
looking-
Yeah.
yeah, so they had to.
So they had a lead.
Yep.
Well played. Good for them.
So,
I also noticed, was it the Doug Phillips duels? Or
no,
Xavier?
Xavier was at the Dick Kennedy duels. in
Oh, Dick
Webster-
Kennedy, my
yeah,
teammate in college.
in Webster
Yeah,
City.
passed away a few years ago.
Of course, I think everybody will recognize the connection. Ryan Chambers, the head coach of Xavier, was a long time ago a prep at Webster City.
Oh, that I didn't know. So that was a long time ago then.
Yeah, I know.
So
Before it was
not go there.
back then, it was a town, not a city yet.
yeah,
But yeah, so they went up to the Dick Kennedy duels.
I think they went 2-2, if I'm not mistaken. And then also won a duel with Waterloo East, maybe?
Yeah, on Thursday night, which
Thursday night, yeah.
our first
Oh, yeah.
Metro duel. And,
Of the new year.
yeah, of the decade even. And,
Oh, that's true, yeah.
I kind of mentioned that Christian Stanek, Xavier, opened the duel with a technical fall there. Of course, he's ranked for Xavier, and that was the first Metro varsity win of the decade. So just throwing that out there.
Good job,
for
Christian and
some
Xavier.
trivia down the road. And speaking of rankings, when are your next set of rankings coming out?
Thursday.
This Thursday.
This coming Thursday.
The third edition of.
By 5 o'clock, I'm hoping. With the help I have, they've been getting them done in good shape, and I'm home. I'm able to be home to get them out there, so they'll be up by 5 o'clock on Thursday before the duels or
of course,
for any of the competition.
This weekend, as you kind of mentioned, now we're kind of getting into the meat and the regular Saturday competition and the tournaments. I will be at Benton Community for the Benton Community Jerry Eckenrod Bobcat invite out there, which is always a good one. West Delaware is out there. Williamsburg will be there.
Well, not only that, you have the top 3 2A teams. All 3 teams will be
That's
there,
loaded.
as well as the top 1A team.
Really?
So you got four of the top teams in the state going to be out there. So it is a loaded tournament.
And it always has been.
Right.
I
It
mean,
always.
you brought Jefferson's been out there.
And even
stuff,
when it
and-
wasn't these teams, when Assumption was strong, so the teams may change, but it's still been a strong tournament.
Yep.
One other thing, go ahead and keep.
Is Assumption there this year?
Yes.
Yeah, so they're not as strong as they have been.
Right.
But Don Bosco,
It's Assumption, Benton Community, Jefferson, Washington, Centerville, Dallas Center, Grimes, East Marshall, Eddyville,
all that
Blakesburg,
stuff.
Independence, Mount Vernon, Northland, Union, West Delaware.
Independence are they second or third right now?
Who?
Independence?
No, they're ranked.
in the duels.
Yeah.
Oh, and
they're in
duels
the
is what I'm
duels.
thinking. Yeah, duels. Sorry. Yep.
Then you have West Liberty and Williamsburg there as well. So some of the teams may not have the overall strength, but they've got
They're going to
good
be individuals.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's one thing that you've always kind of seen there as well.
Right.
So it'll be really fun.
And I was thinking the reason I brought the Independence up is I believe Independence and Williamsburg are wrestling this week, and there's a third school there as well. So I think it's 2 and 3, or I don't know how they're ranked. Williamsburg and Independence somewhere in there.
And that's what I just looked
tied
up.
for second.
On December 27th, so that was in between our last production and now the first set of Iowa Wrestling Coaches and Officials Association dual team rankings come out. Now these are important because later on they will kind of determine seeding regional dual.
Who hosts and who doesn't.
Yep. So I'll give you kind of the top 8 in each class really quick, and then some of our Gazette area groups. So Southeast Polk and Waverly Shell Rock tied for first in the rankings, which
Right now, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I do too.
First one out, I think that's fair.
Yep. Bettendorf is third, Fort Dodge fourth, North Scott, Ankeny Centennial, Waukee, Johnston round out the top 8. Then you have Linn-Mar at 9, Cedar Rapids, Prairie, Kennedy at 13, 14, Western Dubuque at 17. We saw Iowa City West, which is 19th in 3A. In Class 2A, the big WAMAC grouping, they're at the top, and as you mentioned, Independence and Williamsburg tied for second behind top-ranked West Delaware You got OCH, which is 4th, Winterset 5th, Union 6th, Assumption 7th, and Sergeant Bluff Luton, coached by Clint Kudum, 8th. And then I see the only other Gazette area team there is West Liberty at 14th. And then in Class 1A, Lisbon is 1st. After their great showing at the Battle of Waterloo, Don Bosco is 2nd. West Sioux is 3rd. Denver, Logan, Magnolia are tied for 4th. Lake Mills, Underwood, Clarion, Goldfield, Dows round out the top 8. And that's it for the Gazette area groups in the top 16. So.
And do I remember Lisbon beat Don Bosco? Am I thinking that on the duck under?
No, that was Waverly Shell Rock.
Oh, it was Waverly Shell Rock.
Yeah.
I think Don Bosco. Wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But all those duels came down to like the last match or last 2 matches.
The other.
Oh, and that gave Lisbon the win.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was a 3-way. Yeah.
Well, but the other interesting thing, if you look back at the actual results, with Don Bosco and Waverly in that very first duel, it come down to that last match, that overtime match, right? Sudden victory match. Had that gone the other way, did you ever figure out how it would have turned out?
I haven't looked at it.
I think Waverly, and it would just change that one duel. Waverly would have finished 1st instead of 4th.
Really?
And Don Bosco would have dropped to 3rd.
That's how close that was.
That's
Yeah.
how it was.
That's
One overtime match.
Gosh, that's fun.
Yeah.
That's fun.
But speaking of Waverly, though, we'll get back to high school a little bit. They finished 3rd up at the Clash. Braden Wolf was made the all-tournament team. Had 5 falls, and that's wrestling in that championship pool as well. Shakopee and St. Michael Albertville got solid teams.
Really.
Well, Shakopee even because they didn't have close meets, did they?
With St. Michael Albertville in the finals, they did.
They did that last
Yeah,
one?
because they came down to the last match. In fact, I put a little video out on the on that last match because that was the last match. Everything else had closed down, so that everybody was around.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Everybody was around that.
That was cool, actually.
Yeah, and but St. Michael beat Waverly and Don Bosco. St. Michael's got a pretty solid team. Beat Bosco handily, actually. But then to have Braden Wolf on the all-tournament team, pretty solid kid.
But then Don Bosco ended up being first in their second division pool.
So they finished 5th overall. Waverly finished 3rd overall.
North Scott was 4th in that second division.
Right, I forgot about them. And then Bettendorf and Waukee finished 3rd and 4th in the 4th division. And then Anthony Centennial.
Bettendorf, I'm going to call this because it really surprised me. Bettendorf beat Waukee 42-22. That seemed like quite a separation there.
And it was because they're actually depleted. They got a few kids out of that lineup. The heavy Little isn't wrestling
for Bettendorf.
Bettendorf.
He still have his
heavyweight. Yeah,
still in the cast, I guess.
Okay.
And then Centennial won the 7th division. It's kind of interesting because Centennial did they go 1-2 the first day and 3-0 the second day.
Yeah.
So they still get 4-2 over the weekend.
Yeah.
My comment is this: taking a team up there. I honestly don't remember how the heck we finished. I don't even remember how many dual meets we won, but I remember that it brought our team together. It just was a team bonding thing, and not only a team, but the wrestlers, but also the parents and the families, that were up there traveling with us, and it was just a great experience. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I had talked to Coach Groth from Centennial afterwards, and he said right off the bat, he said, "I'm coming back." Even though he finished 28th or whatever it was, 25th. He said, "I'm coming back." He said, "The way it's
he didn't.
run."
He was first in the 7th division. I got you, Jay.
So
Yeah, but to go 4-2, so it's still a good thing with comparable competition, which is good about that tournament.
and I'm gonna kind of tip my fedora a little bit to St. Michael. One of my former BV teammates, an All-American up there, Daryl Becker, has been involved in their youth program for a little while. I'm not sure if he is at the moment, but up until a few years ago, I know he was. And and worked with a lot of kids. And I know his boys are kind of going through it now. He was in my wedding and stuff. So if they're doing
Shoot,
pretty
hi,
well,
Dad.
I'll give the Minnesota Flash a little.
Was that Don Bosco?
Huh?
Don Bosco?
No, St. Michael,
Becker?
Minnesota.
No. He's from Minnesota?
Yeah.
Oh, originally.
Yep,
Okay.
St. Michael, Minnesota.
I just
Shoot, I wish I'd have known that, because I talk a lot of the.
And he's up there and stuff.
Yeah,
so.
being I go up there every year, you know, a lot of those guys, and I don't know how close we are, but I will throw out, as long as we're in the high school, Ali Gerbrecht. Is that, how do you pronounce it?
Ali Gerbrocht. Yep.
Gerbrecht. She's getting close to 100 wins.
Wow.
At
Yep, for
106.
AGWSR.
Exactly.
Her dad, Chad, a former Wartburg wrestler, maybe even Cedar Falls prep,
Yep.
I think.
I think she's got 98 right now, so
Really?
she's pushing
Wow.
pushing her 100
Cool.
wins.
Wow. So
So-
we'll look forward to that, and it'll be a nice milestone for Allie. That'd be the first one. I mean, I can't remember what.
Didn't Felicity have?
I can't remember if she finished with 100 victories. I think she might have.
I'm thinking she did, but
And
in either
I'm not
case,
sure about Megan Black or Cassie or any of them.
yeah, I don't think they did.
Okay. All right. Cool. So we'll keep. We'll look forward to that. Before we tie a bow on this first edition, two things I want to touch on. If you haven't had a chance to look at the All Decade Team, that was a project that all of the prep writers at the Gazette put together. Jeff Linder did girls basketball. Jeff Johnson did boys basketball, and of course I did wrestling. It was fun. One of the things that was neat about it is going over the names and trying to come up with a list of people, is reliving kind of the moments that we watch these guys compete. And even the guys that didn't make the list, you know, kind of watching some of the things that they did and considered them for it. It brought back some really cool memories, and there's been some great competitors and great people that have been part of the wrestling landscape in the Gazette area over that time. And then that was really, really fun. So check it out at thegazette.com as well. And secondly, and I know you guys have run into this too, we've run into a lot of people that have said that they watch the webcast and they enjoy it and everything like that. So I just want to say thank you for following along with us, pretty much every week, except for the break. It really is fun, and it's really neat to hear the feedback from you guys and the fact that you enjoy it. And I know it's something that we don't have to have, but it's cool to hear, to know that what we're doing resonates with people and that you guys are enjoying it, and it's kind of serving a great.
I get the same feedback.
I heard we were up to 25 views.
Is it 25?
25.
Pushing 30 now. So we're score.
Yes.
Good. And here
As
I
long
was,
as we're going up.
Crooked numbers. We want crooked numbers, right?
and here I was thinking both viewers commented.
Well, a little more than two.
Yeah,
now.
exactly.
So, any parting shots? Any parting words?
No, just a good weekend coming up with the Jerry Eckenrod Benton tournament, and our rankings will come out on Thursday.
And the college scene right now is just, it's so fun to
Heating up.
It's going to be fun, man.
Yeah,
So
the next
I'm
month
excited.
and a half is going to be a real fun at both levels. So thanks again for tuning in. Make sure you tune in next week, and we'll talk some more wrestling. Thanks for watching, and we'll let Wyatt take us out.
As always, let's keep wrestling on the move.